Good afternoon. So I've decided that I'm going to start doing these videos for geography. Now the reason why I'm doing videos, and not to bore you, is simply because geography is a complex subject. We jump from science, we look at a lot of math, like looking at graphs and charts. That's really important in geography. And then we go to literacy, trying to understand the perspective of different people. Geography is so broad because remember that definition of geography is the study of of the earth, the study of what happens, the study of places, the study of people. So looking at, say, the demographics of China falls under geography, and also looking at the geological structure of a place in Australia is also geography. So it's really broad. So I understand if you guys just go, what did we just do in class? If you're away, you might miss stuff, and if you misbehaving like some of you were last class I had with you guys, you might miss some stuff too. Alright, so the first thing is, if you do have any questions and you want them in this YouTube video or YouTube podcast vlog, put it in, email me and I will add it in. Okay, so the first thing is we're going to look at biomes. Now this is week 5. You may not know what biomes are. And that's fine. We're going to go over the stuff that we should have already learned. And if you know what biomes are, that's awesome. Take a break for a couple of minutes. No, don't take a break, because it's good to revise. Because you will get a question about biomes, or many questions about biomes in your exam. So a biome is a major habitat, okay? Not an ecosystem. Ecosystem is a bit smaller. It's a major habitat that generally is defined by the flora that is in there. So flora is plants. It's just a fancy word that geographers like to use to make them sound a bit cleverer. Plants, and fauna is animals. It must be Latin. Animals. So we look at what sort of, mostly flora, and that might be a bit funny, because the thing is animals are a bit more resilient. Alright, you can find kangaroos in the desert, but you can't find all plants in the desert. So we look at the flora, we look at the kinds of trees there are. A desert environment would have far less trees, for example, and different kinds. Okay, so biomes, a major biome, as we've talked about before, is a desert. A desert is a major biome. Another one would be forests, and there's many different kinds of forests. You've got cloud forests, you've got rainforests, you've got temperate rainforests, and looking at all of these is really cool. Like I've been to a cloud forest in Thailand, and oh my goodness, it was amazing. I've been to a lot of forests, and it was a beautiful experience. So it's really cool to try to experience every single biome. Maybe we'll do an excursion to try to get to a couple of them. Temperate forests in Australia, especially in the east coast, southeast coast where we live. Yes, I'll call it south enough in Australia. Oh man, they are beautiful. Go to the Barrington Tops, about 2.5 hours away. Wow, it feels like you're walking around where dinosaurs used to walk, because the plants are just essentially the same. Anyways, it's beautiful. But biomes, okay? So they're major habitats. So we look at deserts. We look at, what are some other ones? Sorry, I'm just blanking out for a second. Coasts, okay? So like reef systems. Not the Great Barrier Reef, but coral reefs is a biome. So that's what we mean by a biome. It's just a major habitat. So the Great Barrier Reef is the ecosystem, whereas coral reefs is the biome. The Simpson Desert is a desert in Australia, and that would be an ecosystem, but desert is the biome. And remember biome, the word. So the way you spell it is B-I-O-M-E. And you can kind of cheat. If you know a little bit of Latin, this is an easy word to remember. Bio means life. Anytime you see bio, always means life. So biology, biome, I'm just having a bit of a mind blank. But anyways, anytime you see bio just means life. So once you understand a little bit of Latin and a little bit of Greek, it will really help. Anyways, let's continue. So we're looking at biomes, and we're looking at two main things at the moment: industry. All right. So industry can dramatically change the biome. So one biome we can look at is the forests. All right, forests. What industry uses biomes? And if you don't know what an industry is, it's just essentially a form of a work or production that is done. So, for example, cutting down trees is an industry. That is an industry. Very big in Tasmania and also in Queensland. I've driven through some beautiful plantations on my way to Hervey Bay. Anyway, so industry. So what some of them in forests, what would be some of them, you reckon? It would be, I'm just trying to think of the word for it, pine plantations. All right, so what they do is you've got your big eucalyptus trees that have been growing for a long time. Oh, it's a really beautiful eucalyptus tree. Yeah, so there's my eucalyptus tree. And then people will cut them down and then plant something totally different, like pine. Pine is an awesome thing to plant because it just takes 30 years instead of waiting a ridiculously long time. And you might think that's a long time, but that's just trees. They take a long time. Okay, so industry. Another industry. What about in deserts? What sort of industry would be in deserts? Now, deserts are not as fertile, but there still can be industry. And one of them, especially in Western Australia, really big for is mining. Australia, especially in Western Australia, there's a lot of iron. Okay, I'm sure you've heard of iron before. Where we use iron to make steel. Okay, so this iron that's coming from from Western Australia is high quality. So you can do a lot of cool stuff with it. Iron, you mix carbon and oxygen and iron to make steel. I forget exactly, but anyways, that's how you make steel. And the other thing is, let's look at grasslands. Okay, grasslands is sort of like I'm just trying to think, like savanna. If you see sort of like Madagascar, the movie Madagascar 2, and you see these open areas where there's just generally grass, we call that grasslands. Now, grasslands used to cover a lot of the area in many places, but we've replaced them with one main industry. Farming was the industry. So if you said that, fantastic. You are super duper awesome. Farms. All right, so farms is has really changed it. And so these industries really change the biome. All right, if you try to do farming in a forest, all right, what are some problems you reckon? All right, so because remember there's this balance, okay, there's a balance. There's first of all animals and plants, but then you also have things like water. All right, water. So I'll tell you something what's been in the news recently. Is Australia, and I might ask this in class, in Australia, we have an atrocious record when it comes to land clearing. We are in the top 13 countries now with the highest land clearing. Generally, it's developing countries because they don't have good regulations. But now Australia is in the top 13, mostly in Queensland. Okay, and with that causes massive problems. All right, because there's a balance with these biomes. All right, so the trees, in rainforest, they get a lot of water, generally speaking, in rainforest. If you take down half the trees, where does the water go? It goes into the waterways, the rivers, the streams, and then eventually gets to the ocean. When Australia cut a road from Brisbane all the way up to northern Queensland, we had to cut through rainforests, and that damaged the coral reef. Sediment is bad for the coral reef. Sediment just means soil, dirt, that sort of stuff. Sediment. Okay? Anyways, one last thing before we move finish is climate. Now, climate is an interesting word, and I'm sure you've heard it quite a bit, but all climate is talking about the longer period of time and how is it cold or cool, warm. Let me just start again. So weather. All right, weather is the short term. If I say, hey, Emmanuel, what's the weather today? Emmanuel will go, oh, it's a bit cool. Or if I say, hey, Abdel, what's the weather? He'll probably just say it's warm. It's not too hot. All right, because he can handle the heat pretty well. But that is weather. Now, when it comes to climate, we look at a longer period of time. Okay, we can look at it a few months to a year to 100 years. All right, the longer you look, the more understanding you get of the climate. Okay, so the climate is for longer periods of time. So currently in biomes, the climate is changing, and so that is making drastic changes to the way the biome operates. All right, so in oceans, if the ocean warms up by 2 degrees Celsius, all right, that might sound like, oh, that's all right, just turn the aircon on. Well, it's not all right, because a lot of animals have adapted to these biomes, and with these biomes changing so drastically, so quickly, they aren't able to adapt. They say that in the next 100 years, we're going to lose about 50% of all our species. I hope it's not like that, because that's just terrible. We might lose all these beautiful creatures. So let's hope we don't. But these biomes are changing because of the climate, and vice versa, because humans have altered the biomes so much. We've gotten so much oil, so much coal. We're changing the climate, and so that's what we're looking at now. And next class we'll be looking at that too. All right. Anyways, there was more things I wanted to talk about, but I want to keep it a bit on the shorter side. So thank you for tuning in, and yeah, I'll see you in class. I hope this helps you guys. All right. Adios.